Welcome to South Asian. Today I'm your host Yudhvir Jaswal, and as we were discussing in the previous segment, we have a very special guest for this segment, the Honourable Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper. Welcome to South Asian today.
Thanks for having me here. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. I think the number one issue is economy, and so is for our viewers today. So what is your party stand on economy?
Well, I think that's what's very basic. I think everybody knows that we are in the midst of a very unstable global economy. And we have to be focused on that, focused on protecting our jobs. We know that Canada has done better than most countries over the last few years. How do we keep doing that? In our view, by making some investments in the Canadian economy, things like cutting employment insurance, payroll taxes for people, lowering taxes for small business, making some investments in people, home renovation tax credits, some support for our senior and widowed seniors, single and widowed seniors. So making those investments, but making sure we keep our budget balanced and we can continue to lower taxes. On the other side, Yudhvir, as you know, the proposals are to raise taxes, particularly payroll taxes on small businesses and workers, to run deficits and to finance new programs by canceling existing programs. We think people should keep what they have. We should keep our budget balanced, keep investing, keep lowering taxes, and that's the way to keep the Canadian economy growing.
Foreign policy has been discussed a lot in these elections, and anti-terror bill has been one of the major concerns in the South Asian community. What do you have to say about that?
Well, look, I actually think we've found pretty strong support. The measures we have in our anti-terrorism legislation are measures, frankly, they're to give our police and law enforcement security agencies the powers that other countries already have. For instance, to share information between agencies. Right now, there's no clear authority for security agencies to share threats on potential targets or potential attacks on Canada. We have the ability now to pull down websites that may be trying to recruit people to jihadist terrorism. We have the ability to make it clear that advocating terrorism or promoting it is actually illegal. These are things that I think most Canadians have strongly supported. I think South Asian Canadians know as well as anybody. The jihadist terrorist threat is very real out there, and we need to make sure we're doing what we can here to protect ourselves, but also that we're part of an international coalition taking on the Islamic State, the so-called ISIS, so they can't attack us here in Canada from their base of operations.
Another question is that the fight against ISIS, we're not getting anywhere now. They're still growing in strength with every passing day.
Well, I wouldn't quite put it that way. Their geographical spread has not grown. Look, we haven't rolled them back because there's a lack of ground forces in the region other than the Kurdish forces we're supporting in northern Iraq. But I think that's all the more reason why we need to be taking the attack to them from the air, because the stated goal of this group, ISIS, isn't just to conquer the area. It's to launch terrorist attacks around the world, not just in the region, not just against India or Pakistan, but also Canada. I mean, they've named Canada as a target. So it's important that we keep the pressure on them so they're not able to launch those terrorist attacks against us.
Two things which the opposition is consistently targeting you, and it's being discussed a lot in the South Asian community. One is the B24. With this, the issue is that they're saying that you're creating two different types of Canadians.
Well, they're trying to say that somehow every dual citizen will have their citizenship stripped and be deported. I mean, can you think of something more ridiculous? This is a government that has welcomed a record number of new citizens from around the world, including South Asian new citizens. What the bill does, it's very clear. When you engage and are convicted of activities that go against the very nature of citizenship, like being a convicted terrorist, like wanting to launch attacks on Canada and Canadians, as we saw with the Toronto 18, in those cases, for dual citizens, where we can strip your citizenship and send you, and hopefully be able to send you back to your country of citizenship. I mean, I don't think our fellow South Asians, I don't think our fellow citizens think we should keep convicted terrorists in Canada if we don't have to. And that's what C-24 does.
Being from South Asia, and most of our audience is South Asian Canadian, we all clearly understand in India or Pakistan, the identity politics, how divisive it has been. So as a Prime Minister up until now, two questions for you. What have you done to unite Canadians? And if you get re-elected, what will you do to unite Canadians?
Well, I think, as you know, Yudhvir, this is actually the government that's had the broadest support among new Canadians of probably any government in Canadian history. For years the Liberals got a lot of new Canadian vote. But new Canadians never moved up in the party. They were rarely candidates, rarely MPs, rarely cabinet ministers. In our party, we've been able to make sure new Canadians actually participate in the political process. We have something like 17 South Asian candidates running for us in this election. 1/5 of all the candidates of the Conservative Party in this election are new Canadians. So we're actually making sure that Canadians from all backgrounds are actively participating in the political process. And of course, the biggest thing we're going to do for all Canadians is to keep our economy growing by keeping our taxes down, keeping our budgets balanced, and making sensible investments. And I think, you know, a country that's prosperous and growing is always more united than one that isn't.
Many of our viewers, you know, after watching this show, they could be asking you, if I'm, you know, the governments might change, but if I'm still stuck on 401, the traffic gridlock is same, how would you be investing in infrastructure, especially here in GTA?
We are making, in the next 10 years in our economic action plan, we have record investments in infrastructure. Do you know that this year alone, we are making 15 times the level of investment in infrastructure of the last year of the previous Liberal government. And in the next year to come, those investments are actually going to grow. It's $80 billion over the next decade. The priorities are all decided in consultation with the provinces. You know, we've already committed to funding Meritorious Smart Track program. These are big investments, record investments. The difference is the other guys, you know, their plan is to say, well, we'll do more. But what we're doing without raising people's taxes, without running deficits, and without cutting people's benefits. The other guys say they'll spend more on everything. That's their campaign. You know, the Liberal NDP campaigns, Liberal campaign in particular, is just to say we'll spend more money. The Liberals are promising to spend $150 billion new money in the next mandate. That's their commitment. How are you going to possibly pay for that? Well, obviously, cutting benefits, raising taxes, running deficits. The investments we're making in infrastructure keep people whole, keep investing in people.
My last question to you is, you know, people still keep on asking, you know, that yes, we are investing in infrastructure, we are, you know, lowering down the taxes, but still somehow they still feel, how can you, you know, create a better life for them?
Well, we're going to keep making these investments. I mentioned some of the things we're going to do on the home renovation tax credit, some support for single seniors. There's lots of investments we're going to make, but we're going to make sure all these investments are paid for. People's taxes keep coming down. Look, I'd ask your viewers to take a serious look at how we've run Ottawa versus how the province has been run, with record deficits, constant tax increases, constant chipping away at services. Do we really want that kind of Liberal mismanagement at both levels of government? What would that do to our country and our economy? You know, at the federal level, you talk about infrastructure. At the federal level, we're virtually eliminating the infrastructure deficit. We're now having to help the province and municipalities. We're happy to do that, but we can't afford that kind of Liberal mismanagement at both levels of government.
I thank you very much for your time, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks for having me.